Fleet Admiral Kex-9 adjusted his battle armor as he gazed upon the pristine blue marble below, Earth. Such a simple name for what should have been the easiest conquest in galactic history. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he reviewed the tactical display showing 300 warships positioned around the planet. "Admiral," came the grating voice of his tactical officer Renz 2, "ground forces report minimal resistance. The humans appear to be hiding." Kex-9's four eyes rolled in unison. "Hiding? Of course they are. What did you expect from these soft-skinned mammals? A glorious last stand? Ha! They probably wet themselves when they saw our ships." The bridge crew erupted in their species equivalent of laughter, a sound like grinding metal mixed with dying machinery. The Vorthan Empire had conquered 67 worlds in the past century. Earth would be number 68, and by far the most pathetic. "Deploy the ground forces to major population centers," Kex-9 commanded, his claws tapping against his command throne. "Standard pacification protocols. Round up the survivors for processing. This should be finished by tomorrow's cycle." 3 hours later, the laughter had died. "What do you mean, one human?" Kex-9's voice carried a dangerous edge as he stared at his communications officer, Jex-5. "Sir, ground forces report that a single human combatant has neutralized 4 of our advance squads." Jex-5's voice quivered like a frightened insect. "They describe impossible shots from impossible distances." Impossible. Kex-9 slammed his primary fist against his throne's armrest. "Our soldiers wear combat armor rated against plasma weapons. One primitive human with chemical projectile weapons cannot possibly—" "Sir," Renz 2 interrupted, which normally would have earned him a swift execution. "The reports are consistent. Headshots through the vision slits. Every single one." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. HFY's tactical display showed red markers where entire squads had simply stopped responding. All in the same geographical area, all within a span of 2 hours. "Show me the location," he growled. The display zoomed in on a forested region near what human maps called the Rocky Mountains. Elevation markers showed peaks, valleys, and thousands of possible hiding spots. Perfect sniper country, if one knew how to use it. "Have we identified the shooter?" "Negative, sir. Long-range scans detect no significant heat signatures or technology markers. Whoever this is, they are operating with minimal equipment." Kex-9's laugh was bitter. One human. Send in the hunter-killer drones. Saturate the entire area. I want this pest eliminated immediately." 2 hours later, Jex-5 returned with an expression that suggested he was contemplating the quickest way to throw himself out an airlock. "Sir, the drones—" "Don't tell me. All 12 units destroyed, sir. The human appears to have improvised some form of anti-aircraft capability." "Improvised?" Kex-9's roar could be heard 3 decks away. "We sent military-grade hunter-killer drones against one human and they improvised a solution." The tactical display updated with new red markers. More squads down. The unknown sniper was moving through the mountains like a ghost, picking off Vorthan's soldiers with mechanical precision. Each shot was a kill. Each position was abandoned before return fire could arrive. It was impossible. It was infuriating. It was, Kex-9 had to admit, almost artistic in its efficiency. "Get me Colonel Brick 7, he commanded. The holographic image of the ground force commander materialized, showing a battle-scarred Vorthan with 3 missing appendages from previous campaigns. Brick 7 had conquered worlds. He did not look happy. "Admiral, with respect, we need orbital bombardment. This human is different." "Different how?" "Sir, in 30 years of warfare I have never encountered anything like this. The tactical awareness is superhuman. They know where we are before we arrive. They know our patterns, our weaknesses. It's like fighting a ghost who can see the future." Kex-9's headache was reaching legendary proportions. "Colonel, you have 3,000 soldiers down there. Are you telling me that one human is systematically destroying my army?" "Yes, sir." Brick 7's tone held no embarrassment, only professional assessment. "We have lost 43 units in 6 hours. At this rate, my entire force will be eliminated within 2 days." "That's impossible." "Sir, I thought the same thing, until I watched this human take out a squad from 2 kilometers away, in a crosswind, during a snowstorm. with what appears to be a chemical projectile weapon that should barely be able to reach half that distance. The bridge was so quiet that Kex-9 could hear his own hearts beating. 3 of them, to be precise, all hammering against his ribcage like trapped animals. What are you recommending, Colonel? Pull back, regroup, study the target, then glass the entire mountain range from orbit.
Absolutely not.
Kex-9's pride would not allow such a solution. We do not flee from individual primitives. Deploy the elite units. Send in the Crimson Guard. Even through the hologram, Rick 7's reaction was visible. The Crimson Guard were the finest soldiers in the Vorthan military. Enhanced warriors with advanced armor, superior weapons, and decades of experience. They had never failed a mission. Sir, are you certain? Deploy them immediately. I want this human's head delivered to my bridge before the next cycle. 3 hours later, the communication came in, not from the Crimson Guard, but from a surviving regular trooper who had witnessed the engagement from a hidden position. Sir, they are all dead. Kex-9 stood slowly from his throne, his 4 eyes focusing on the communications panel with laser intensity. Repeat that. The Crimson Guard, sir, all 12 of them. The human used their own equipment against them, turned their thermal imaging into a disadvantage, made their advanced armor into targets. Sir, I watched this human take out 3 enhanced warriors in 30 seconds using nothing but terrain and pure skill. That's impossible, Kex-9 whispered, but even he no longer believed it. Sir, respectfully, everything about this human is impossible. The shots they are making, the tactics they are using, the way they seem to predict our every move, it's like they have been fighting Vorthas their entire life. The fleet admiral sank back into his throne. Around him, his crew worked in silence, occasionally glancing at their commander with expressions ranging from confusion to outright fear. The mighty Vorthan Empire, conqueror of worlds, was being held off by a single primitive human. Get me intelligence reports on human military capabilities, he ordered. Sir, we have extensive files. Humans are technologically inferior, physically weaker, and completely inexperienced in galactic warfare. They should pose no significant threat to even our basic ground forces. Then explain to me how one of them just eliminated our elite units. Sir, Jex-5's voice was barely above a whisper. Perhaps we underestimated human adaptability. The word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Adaptability. It was a trait the Vortham military had encountered before, but never to this degree. Most species, when faced with superior force, either surrendered or fought with predictable tactics. Humans, apparently, did neither. Show me the combat footage, Kex-9 commanded. The main display flickered to life, showing helmet camera feeds from the fallen Crimson Guard units. What Kex-9 saw defied every principle of warfare he had learned in 3 centuries of military service. The human moved through the terrain like it was an extension of their own body. Every rock, every tree, every shadow was used as cover or concealment. The sniper fire came from impossible angles, often from positions that should have been unreachable. When the Crimson Guard attempted to flank, they found only empty spaces where the human had been moments before. Most disturbing of all was the precision. Every shot was placed with surgical accuracy, finding the weak points in Vorthan armor that even their own engineers barely knew existed. This was not luck. This was not random success. This was skill refined to an art form. How many humans like this could there be? Kex-9 asked, though he was not sure he wanted the answer. Unknown, sir. Our intelligence suggests this individual is operating alone, but what? Sir, if humanity possesses more individuals with these capabilities, the implication hit the bridge like a meteor strike. If Earth had more snipers like this one, the invasion could become the first major military defeat in Vorthan history. 300 warships, 30,000 soldiers, all held at bay by primitive chemical weapons and impossible skill. Admiral, Rens-2 spoke up carefully. Should we consider negotiation? Negotiation? Kex-9's roar made several junior officers jump. We do not negotiate with primitives. We conquer them.
Sir, with respect, this primitive has killed 60 of our soldiers in 8 hours. At this rate,
we adapt our tactics. Kex-9 stood and began pacing, his claws clicking against the metal deck. This human is alone. They have limited ammunition, limited supplies, limited endurance. We have numerical superiority and orbital support. They cannot maintain this performance indefinitely. But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept into his mind. The reports suggested this human had not only maintained their performance, but was actually getting more efficient. The time between engagements was decreasing while the casualty rates were increasing. It was as if the sniper was learning their tactics faster than they could adapt. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "incoming transmission from the surface, Colonel Brick 7. The hologram reappeared, but this time Brick 7 looked like he had been through a plasma storm. His armor was damaged, his primary weapon was missing, and his expression spoke of someone who had seen the impossible. "Admiral, I'm requesting immediate withdrawal of all ground forces." "Denied." "Sir, this human is not just a sniper. They are a force of nature. In the past hour they have taken out 2 more squads, disabled our heavy equipment, and somehow managed to turn our own supplies against us. My command post has been compromised twice. We cannot maintain position. Colonel, you have numerical superiority of 3,000 to 1. "Sir, numbers mean nothing when your enemy is invisible, impossible to predict, and apparently capable of making physics bend to their will. This human is rewriting the rules of engagement faster than we can read them." Kex 9 stared at the tactical display. Red markers now covered a significant portion of the mountain region. Each marker represented fallen soldiers, destroyed equipment, or compromised positions. One human had created more tactical damage than entire rebel fleets had managed in previous campaigns. "What are our casualties total?" 67 confirmed kills, sir. 23 wounded. 12 units of heavy equipment destroyed or disabled. 2 communication arrays compromised. The bridge fell silent. In 8 hours, a single human had inflicted more damage on Vorthon forces than most planetary defenses managed in weeks of fighting. "Sir," Jex 5 added quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting increased human military movement in other regions. It appears word of our difficulties is spreading." "Are you telling me that other humans are being inspired by this one individual?" "Yes, sir. Reports suggest human resistance cells are forming across multiple continents. They appear to be coordinating defensive positions and sharing tactical information." Kex 9 felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of military service. Fear. Not for his own safety, but for the reputation of the Vorthon Empire. They were not just fighting one human anymore. They were fighting the idea of resistance that this one human represented. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" "The second fleet is 6 days out, sir." 6 days. Could they maintain the invasion for 6 more days against an enemy that was learning and adapting faster than their own military doctrine could accommodate? Could they prevent word of their struggles from reaching other worlds? "Admiral," Renstu said carefully, "perhaps we should consider alternative approaches. Psychological warfare, perhaps, or economic pressure. Against a species that is fighting for their home world, psychological warfare will only make them more determined. Economic pressure is meaningless when they have nothing left to lose." The truth was beginning to sink in. The Vorthon Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming force and technological superiority. They had never encountered a species that could neutralize those advantages through pure skill and determination. One human sniper had not just stalled their invasion, they had exposed a fundamental weakness in Vorthon military thinking. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the human military." "What? How?" "We destroyed their communication infrastructure. Sir, it appears to be coming from everywhere. They have somehow linked their surviving networks into a planetary broadcast system." "Put it through." The display filled with the image of a human in military uniform. The individual looked tired but determined, with eyes that held no fear despite facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "To the Vorthon fleet," the human began, "I am General Patricia Stone, speaking for the United Earth Defense Council. Your invasion has been noted and evaluated. We propose a temporary ceasefire for the purpose of recovering your dead." Kex 9's mandibles clicked in rage. "They are proposing to return our casualties? The audacity!" "Sir," Jex 5 pointed out, "it might be a tactical advantage. We could study their defensive positions, assess their capabilities. It's a trap, obviously." "Perhaps, sir, but what if it isn't? What if they are genuinely offering humanitarian assistance?" The concept was so alien to Vorthon thinking that Kex 9 needed several moments to process it. In their experience, warfare was total. There were no humanitarian gestures, no ceasefires, no mercy for the defeated. Why would they do such a thing? Unknown, sir. Human behavior patterns are inconsistent with standard conquest scenarios. On the display, General Stone continued speaking. We are aware that your forces have encountered significant resistance in the Rocky Mountain region. We want you to know that the individual responsible for your casualties is operating independently of official military command. This engagement does not represent the full scope of Earth's defensive capabilities. What is that supposed to mean? Kex-9 demanded of the air. Sir, Rens 2 ventured, I believe they are suggesting that their sniper is not their best effort. That's impossible. No species maintains irregular forces superior to their official military. But even as he spoke, doubt crept in. Everything about this invasion had defied their expectations. Why should human military organization be any different? Accept the ceasefire, he decided, but maintain full alert status. If this is deception, I want to be ready to respond with overwhelming force. Yes, sir. How long should the ceasefire last? 4 hours. Enough time to recover our people and assess the situation. As the transmission ended, Kex-9 found himself staring at the tactical display with new eyes. The red markers no longer looked like tactical problems to be solved. They looked like warnings. Each fallen soldier represented not just a casualty, but evidence of human capabilities that their intelligence had completely failed to predict. One sniper, one impossible, infuriating, inexplicable human sniper had stalled the most powerful invasion force in galactic history, and if General Stone was telling the truth, this was just the beginning. The ceasefire would give them time to regroup, certainly, but it would also give the humans time to prepare, and after 8 hours of watching the impossible become routine, Kex-9 was no longer certain which side would benefit more from the delay. Outside the bridge viewports, Earth continued its lazy rotation, looking deceptively peaceful. But somewhere in those mountains, a human sniper was probably cleaning their weapon, checking their ammunition, and planning their next impossible shot. The thought sent an unfamiliar chill through Kex-9's exoskeleton. For the first time in his military career, he was beginning to understand why some species chose death over surrender. And for the first time in Vorthan history, he was beginning to wonder if they had chosen the wrong planet to conquer. The ceasefire would begin in 1 hour. After that, they would discover whether humanity's capacity for the impossible extended beyond individual snipers to entire planetary defense forces. Somehow, Kex-9 suspected he was about to find out exactly how much they had underestimated the species they had come to enslave. The war for Earth had begun with overwhelming Vorthan superiority. 8 hours later, it had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A fair fight, and that, more than any tactical loss, was what truly terrified Fleet Admiral Kex-9. One human sniper had changed everything. The question now was whether everything would be enough to save Earth, or whether it would simply make their eventual defeat more spectacular to witness. The ceasefire had lasted exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes before everything went to hell. Fleet Admiral Kex-9 watched the tactical display update in real time, each new red marker appearing faster than his tactical computer could process them. What had begun as a careful recovery operation had turned into the largest military disaster in Vorthan history. Report, he barked at Jex-5, who was frantically working his communication console like a musician playing a particularly violent symphony. Sir, the recovery teams are under attack, not just from the mountain sniper but from multiple positions. The humans have, sir, they have got snipers everywhere. How many? Current count suggests at least 12 separate marksmen, sir. Maybe more. The shots are coming from locations across 3 mountain ranges. Kex-9's 4 eyes bulged in their sockets. 12? 12 snipers like the one who has been tormenting us all day. Sir, respectfully, these new ones appear to be different. Different how? Though Kex-9 was beginning to suspect he really did not want to know. Sir, the original sniper was precise, calculating, methodical. These new ones are creative. The main display switched to helmet camera feeds from the recovery teams. What Kex-9 saw defied every principle of military engagement he had ever learned. Human snipers were not just picking off his soldiers, they were staging elaborate tactical displays that seemed designed more to humiliate than to simply kill. One sniper had somehow rigged explosive charges to detonate in sequence, spelling out what the translation computer helpfully informed him was a rather rude human phrase. Another had managed to use ricocheting shots to take out 3 soldiers with a single bullet. A third appeared to be using some form of chemical projectile that released a foul-smelling gas upon impact, sending entire squads fleeing in panic. "Sir," Burns, too announced with the tone of someone delivering news of his own execution, "Colonel Brick 7 is requesting immediate orbital bombardment of his own position." "What?" "Sir," his exact words were, "glass everything within 50 kilometers of my location. I would rather die in atomic fire than continue this humiliation." The bridge fell silent except for the constant stream of damage reports flowing through the communication system. X9 found himself in the unprecedented position of watching his invasion force being systematically dismantled by what amounted to a handful of primitives with chemical weapons. "How many casualties now?" "Sir, in the past 3 hours we have lost 137 soldiers, 4 atmospheric fighters, 2 heavy transport vehicles, and our primary field communication array." "And enemy casualties?" "Unknown, sir. We have not confirmed a single human fatality." X9's laugh was the sound of metal being torn apart. "Not one? Not one? We have lost nearly 200 soldiers, and we have not managed to kill a single human." "Sir, the humans appear to be employing what they call hit-and-run tactics. They strike from concealed positions, inflict maximum damage, then disappear before we can respond. By the time our forces reach their firing positions, they find only empty ground. And occasionally," Jex5 added with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a plague outbreak, "humorous messages carved into nearby trees." "Humorous messages?" "Yes, sir, the translation computer has been working overtime. Apparently humans possess an extensive vocabulary for creative insults." The tactical display updated again, showing the positions of known sniper activity. What had begun as a single red dot in the Rocky Mountains had spread across half the continent like some form of military infection. Each new position represented another impossible marksman, another tactical nightmare, another blow to Vorthan pride. "Sir," Renstu spoke carefully, "incoming transmission from High Command." X9's heart sank. High Command meant Supreme Admiral Vex Prime, the most decorated military leader in Vorthan history. A warrior who had conquered 40 worlds personally and had never experienced defeat. This conversation was going to be memorable for all the wrong reasons. The holographic image materialized, showing a figure that radiated authority like a small star radiates heat. Supreme Admiral Vex Prime's presence filled the bridge, making everyone except Kex9 instinctively step backward. "Admiral Kex9, explain to me why your invasion of a primitive world has stalled." "Sir, we have encountered unexpected resistance. Human military capabilities were severely underestimated in our intelligence reports." "Underestimated how?" "Sir, they possess individual marksmen with capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections for their entire military force." Vex Prime's expression shifted through several levels of disbelief before settling on dangerous irritation. "Individual marksmen? You have 300 warships and 30,000 soldiers. Are you telling me that individual snipers are creating tactical difficulties?" "Sir, yes. Specifically, they are creating tactical impossibilities." "Explain." Kex9 gestured to his tactical officer, who began transmitting combat footage to High Command. For several minutes, Vex Prime watched in silence as human snipers performed feats that violated everything both commanders understood about warfare. "These shots are impossible," Vex Prime finally stated. "Yes, sir, that appears to be the humans' tactical specialty." "How many such marksmen do they possess?" "Unknown, sir. Current estimates suggest at least 13 confirmed positions, but the number appears to be growing hourly." "Growing?" "Sir, it appears that word of our difficulties is spreading among the human population. More snipers are arriving in the combat zone from across their continent." Vex Prime's silence stretched long enough to make Kex9 wonder if the transmission had failed. When the Supreme Admiral finally spoke, his voice carried an edge that could cut through battleship armor. "You are telling me that news of Vortham military struggles is inspiring additional enemy combatants to join the fight?" "Yes, sir. And these additional combatants are proving as effective as the original?" "Sir, some of them appear to be more effective." The hologram flickered as Vex Prime's control over his temper began to slip. more effective than the sniper who has already inflicted more casualties than entire planetary defense forces. Sir, one of the new arrivals appears to be using some form of guided projectile. Another has demonstrated the ability to make shots while moving at high speed through difficult terrain. A third appears to be coordinating with local wildlife to enhance targeting accuracy. Wildlife. Sir, reports suggest one human sniper is using trained birds to spot targets and relay information. We are being outmaneuvered by primitives who have recruited the local ecosystem to their cause. If Vex Prime had possessed hair, it would have been standing on end. Instead, his chitinous head crest began glowing with barely contained rage. Admiral Kex-9, you will resolve this situation immediately. Deploy whatever force is necessary. Use orbital bombardment if required. I will not have the Vorthan Empire's reputation destroyed by a handful of primitives with chemical weapons. Sir, orbital bombardment may not be effective. These humans have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. They may have prepared for such tactics. Then what do you recommend? Kex-9 took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would either end his career or begin a new chapter in galactic military history. Sir, I recommend inoculation. The silence that followed was so profound that several bridge officers began checking their life support systems to ensure they had not suddenly been transported to the vacuum of space. Negotiation, Vex Prime repeated, his voice carrying the tone of someone tasting something particularly unpleasant. Sir, these humans have demonstrated tactical capabilities that exceed our current ability to counter. They are fighting for their home world, which provides them with motivation advantages we cannot match. Additionally, they appear to possess a collective military intelligence that allows them to adapt faster than we can develop new strategies. You are recommending that the Vorthan Empire, conqueror of 67 worlds, negotiate with primitives who cannot even achieve faster than light travel. Sir, I am recommending that we acknowledge that these particular primitives have capabilities we did not anticipate and may not be able to overcome with conventional military force. Vex Prime's image began to flicker as his communication equipment struggled to handle the electromagnetic interference generated by his rising fury. Admiral, you have 12 hours to demonstrate decisive progress in this invasion. If you cannot achieve victory, I will personally arrive to take command. And if I have to clean up your failures, your career will end in a manner that makes orbital bombardment seem pleasant. The transmission ended, leaving Kex-9 staring at empty air while his bridge crew pretended to be fascinated by their instrument panels. Well, he announced to the universe in general, that went better than expected. Sir, Jex-5 ventured, I expected him to execute me immediately. 12 hours is practically generous. What are your orders, sir? Kex-9 looked at the tactical display where new red markers continued to appear like some form of military rash. 13 confirmed sniper positions had become 17. Casualty reports were flowing in faster than his staff could process them. Equipment losses were mounting. Morale was somewhere below the level typically associated with plague outbreaks. Get me General Stone again. Sir, should I open standard military communication protocols? No. Send a priority transmission on all human frequencies. I want every radio, television, and communication device on their planet to receive this message. The main display activated, showing Kex-9's image being broadcast to an entire world. For a moment he wondered what he was about to say. Then he decided that honesty might be refreshing after a day full of tactical impossibilities. People of Earth, this is Fleet Admiral Kex-9 of the Vorthan Empire. We came to your world expecting easy conquest. Instead, we have discovered that your species possesses military capabilities that challenge everything we understand about warfare. He paused, looking at his tactical display where red markers now covered most of North America. Your snipers have inflicted more damage on our forces than entire planetary armies have achieved in previous campaigns. They have demonstrated skills that our military academies teach are theoretically impossible. They have turned our technological advantages into disadvantages, and our numerical superiority into a tactical liability. Another pause. Longer this time. In 12 hours, my superior will arrive with additional forces. When that happens, this engagement will escalate beyond individual combat to planetary bombardment. Your snipers, skilled as they are, cannot shoot down orbital weapons platforms. The bridge was silent except for the background hum of life support systems. Therefore, I am proposing a formal meeting between our military commands, not surrender, not conquest, but negotiation. You have proven that the cost of taking your world by force would be significant. Perhaps there are alternatives that serve both our interests. He gestured to end the transmission, then sat back in his command throne to wait for the response. Sir, Renstu asked, what if they refuse? Then in 12 hours we will discover whether human adaptability extends to surviving orbital bombardment. And we will discover whether the Vorthan Empire's reputation can survive losing an entire invasion fleet to a species armed with chemical weapons. The response came within an hour. General Stone appeared on the main display, but she was not alone. Behind her stood a figure that made Kex-9's blood chill in his veins. The human was tall, lean, and carried themselves with the unconscious confidence of someone who had never missed an important shot. They wore simple combat clothing with no rank insignia, but everyone in the room deferred to their presence. This Kex-9 realized was the original sniper, the impossible marksman who had started their humiliation. Admiral Kex-9, General Stone began, we accept your proposal for negotiation. However, we have conditions. State them. First, all Vorthan forces will withdraw to a minimum distance of 50 kilometers from any human population center. Second, your fleet will maintain current orbital positions without moving closer to Earth. Third, negotiations will take place on neutral ground of our choosing. And if we refuse these conditions, the human behind General Stone stepped forward, and when they spoke, their voice carried the calm certainty of someone discussing the weather. Then I go back to work, Admiral, and I promise you, the first 200 casualties were just practice. Kex-9 stared at the figure who had single-handedly stalled an entire invasion fleet. You are the sniper. Marcus Webb, formerly of the U.S. Marine Corps, currently of wherever I need to be to make your day more interesting. How? How did you achieve those shots? How did you predict our tactics? How did you turn our own equipment against us? Webb's smile was the expression of someone who had found their calling in life. Admiral, I have been shooting competitively since I was 12 years old. I have been a military sniper for 15 years. I have been hunting in these mountains for 25 years. When you showed up in my backyard with fancy armor and predictable tactics, you did not present me with a challenge. You presented me with target practice. But the distances, the conditions, the precision, physics, Admiral, ballistics, environmental awareness, and a lifetime of practice. You assumed that primitive meant incompetent. Bad assumption. General Stone stepped forward again. Admiral, Marcus is not unique. He is exceptional, but not unique. Earth has thousands of marksmen with similar capabilities. What happened to your forces today was not luck, and it was not impossible. It was simply what happens when you underestimate a species that has been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. Thousands of years? Admiral, we have been fighting each other since we discovered sharp sticks. We have been improving our weapons, tactics, and strategies through constant conflict for our entire history. Your empire conquered primitive worlds. You never conquered a world full of warriors. Kex-9 looked at his tactical display where red markers now stretched from coast to coast. Each marker represented not just a tactical problem, but evidence of a military tradition that stretched back through millennia of human conflict. What are your terms for negotiation? Simple, General Stone replied. Mutual withdrawal. Your forces return to your ships. Our forces return to their homes. Then we discuss what happens next, like civilized beings instead of trying to kill each other. And if negotiations fail, Marcus Webb stepped forward again and his smile widened. Then, Admiral, you get to discover what humans are capable of when we really try. Today was just getting warmed up. The transmission ended, leaving Kex-9 alone with the most difficult decision in Vorthan military history. Accept terms from primitives, or face the possibility of the first major military defeat in their empire's existence. He looked at his tactical display one more time, counting the red markers that represented impossible shots, shattered assumptions, and humbled pride. 200 casualties from a single sniper, 17 confirmed marksmen now active, more arriving hourly, an entire planet of warriors who had been perfecting the art of war since before the Vorthan Empire existed. Communications, he announced, signal general withdrawal. All ground forces return to transport ships. Maintain defensive positions only. Sir, Jex-5 asked. Are we accepting their terms? We are acknowledging reality. X9 replied. And reality is that we came here expecting to conquer sheep, and instead found wolves. Very well armed, incredibly accurate wolves. As his forces began their withdrawal, Kex-9 found himself looking forward to the negotiations with something approaching curiosity. Any species that could produce marksmen like Marcus Webb would have fascinating perspectives on warfare strategy and survival. Besides, 12 hours from now, Supreme Admiral Vex Prime would arrive to take command. Better to be negotiating than to be explaining how the Vorthine Empire's reputation had been destroyed by a human with a rifle and a sense of humor. The war for Earth had ended not with conquest or defeat, but with mutual respect between warriors. It was not the outcome anyone had expected, but it was, Kex-9 had to admit, probably the only outcome that would allow both species to maintain their dignity. And somehow that seemed like a very human solution to an impossible problem.